All right, so we just did that. Just making sure I'm recording. Pipeline range. So let's take a look at this one. So here's a range else, right? Range over the stuff. Otherwise, hey, we don't have any items. That's kind of cool. So here we could pass in an empty. What is that? Slice events. So if we had a nil slice, then a nil slice. I wonder if a nil slice would not have the underlying array. It's just nil, right? But here the underlying array is there, but there's no entries. So that's an empty slice events, and we pass that in, and we should see that there is no data. I think that's what it'll say to us, or whatever we told it to say. No items. So this is like taking a little bit of a, let's see what I do, talk about composition here. And then we're going to take a little bit of a composition. But composition is an idea in Go with compose. How do you compose your program? How do you compose different data types? And so you can see here that I have a person struct, right? Struct is just a data structure, a collection of fields, and name and age. And so here, then I create a variable p1 of type person and give it the values name and age, right? So that's what I'm doing. You talk about it in that way too. You don't talk about it as instances so much, although sometimes you see instances in the Go, documentation. But you really want to say, hey, I have a variable p1 of type person with these values. Is the way you talk about that. Variable type values is how you talk about that in Go. And so then I'm passing in p1 into my template to execute that. So I parse my files on line 20, and then right here, and then I'm going to execute my template, standard out p1, and what does my template look like? Right, I've got name and age. Right, so now I'm like, oh cool. Now at the top of your web page, it's like showing your username or whatever. So let's take a look at that. So James Bond, 23. Nice. And you could build on that composition, and this is where you start to do like, Go is an object-oriented language, but it approaches the concepts of object orientation in a really different way. And so instead of having classes and inherits and all that stuff, right? You just embed types. And so we have type person, and that lays out name and age. And then we have type 00, which embeds the type person. And this is called the outer type. 00 is the outer type, and person is the inner type. And everything in person gets promoted up to the interior type gets promoted to the exterior type, right? And so person, because person is there, we have age, name, and age. And then we also have license to kill, which is a bool. And so when you create a variable of that type and assign it values, the way you do that is like this. And so, my first one, and this is a little non-intuitive that you put person : because we didn't have a person up here because that's kind of like doublespeak. And the idiomatic way to write this code is to not do that. Less is more. Do less, enable more. That's kind of like the Go mantra. And so here we have 00. And we do the person, and we create a struct literal to initialize that field. And person has name and age, and then license to kill. And we can access all of those directly from the outer type. We could access all the fields from the outer type. We don't have to say when we access the field, just like we access the field back here, we access the field back here as .name, right? We don't have to say .person.name, right? We don't have to add that extra level, we just say .name, and that interior type's promoted to the exterior type. So what's that template look like for this one? It looks like this. Name, age, license to kill. That's it. And we have an if-else end. So if license to kill, if that's true, then we're going to print license to kill. Otherwise, we're just going to print license to ill. You can listen to Beastie Boys, but you can't carry a Walther PPK. Let's see what happens. So what did the bool, what did I set it to? True. James Bond, license to kill, true. License to kill. They always have to be younger than the protagonist. License to ill. I think I'll change that to license to chill. I think I like that better. That's known as composition in Go, right? Composing your program that way. And so just take a moment away from templating and look at methods. We've already looked at methods, but looking at this idea of composition. And there's a really great article, which I can refer you to. And that article is Bill Kennedy, Golang blog. And Go and Go programming. And composition with Go. It's his most recent article. So you could read about, composition, but I'm giving you sort of like the essentials right here, right, of how that all works. He gives you a little bit more of an in-depth example, but check that out. And so here are the simple thing, right? We've already seen person, and then we embed type person into type 00, and these are user-defined types. So this is Kai, how we do sort of composition with Go, and we're creating data structures which hold fields, and then we can create variables of these types and give them values, initialize them with values. And we can also assign the methods, and so here, this is the receiver. Whoa. That part's the receiver, meaning this method, this function is attached to this method, right? And so that's a value receiver. There's pointer receivers and value receivers. That's just a value receiver, and it's attached to type 00. And you'll notice person and 00 both have the method greeting. And so this is what do they call that? Overriding methods. What do they call that? I forget. Overloaded methods. Thank you. Overloaded methods. And so if you're just a person, then you only get that method. But if you happen to be 00, you get a different method. And so you can see we create a variable P1 of type person and initialize it to Ian Fleming. Who knows who Ian Fleming is? Anybody? He's the author who wrote the James Bond novels. Kind of cool. And then we do P2, variable P2 of type 00, and initialize it to those values. And actually, license to kill needs to be true on that. And then we just print P1 greeting and P2 greeting. And so, those are the same methods, but because they're attached to different types, we know which one, the Go compiler knows which one to run. Okay? Run it.
Are there no classes in Go, just structures?
No classes. Don't you wish it was that way in school?
Yes.
Kind of defeat the purpose, though, huh? Miss Money, please. So good to see you. I'm just a regular person. P1, I'm a regular person. P2 is James Bond. And of course, what's James Bond going to say when he sees Miss Moneypenny? So glad to see you. What would happen, I wonder? Can we do P2, which is 00? P2 person greeting? Is that? Whoa. Right? Because there we said, hey, you know what? I want to talk to the method that's attached to person, right? Not the one attached to 00. And so I access the method attached to that embedded type, right? So you could access the method attached to the embedded type. I could probably also just do format.println, right? I could do p2.name, Whoops. And I could probably also do p2.person.name. Is it doing it? I'm just not seeing it. There we go. Or I could do it both those ways. I don't know why it took a while for that to save or something. That's interesting. Cool, huh? Don't get too lost in the details. Yeah, I can see you like, what? Right? Like, mostly you just want to focus on, you know, and that's kind of fun right there. But mostly you just want to think about this. Right? Your brow wasn't furrowing when you saw that. You're like, oh, okay. But when I started to add in, you know, the human mind has trouble with like more than three things above 3. You want me to prove it to you? Remember these numbers: 72, 14, 96. What were they? What were those?
14, 96.
72, 14, 96. Okay, and now you ready? 84, 13, 22. What were those numbers? See?
72, 14, 96. No.
Right? The human mind just starts to tweak. Like after 3, we're like, I can't hold it anymore. And so when you start to see like ... you're like, wait a minute.
Wow, I can't believe you were 100% right about that, though.
It's hard. And if you ever like, there's a reporter who famously, he did a talk, you know, how to, I don't remember what the talk is, but a reporter memory challenge competition, reporter memory competition. That made me bring it up. Reporter, there we go. Feats of memory anyone can do. So you should check out this talk. This guy was a reporter, and there's this memory championship where people go in and remember like the order of 12 decks of cards shuffled and remember their order. Like they have 20 minutes to study it, and then they could just say back the order. Right? He's like, how do you guys do that? And so, you know, they all were like, oh, these are the different techniques I use. So he went home, and he's like, okay, well, how well do these techniques work? As a reporter, right? He was just practicing it. And so he just spent like an hour or 2 every day for a couple of weeks, you know, practicing these techniques. And he's like, holy cow, these techniques actually work. And he went back to the memory championship and won.
Wait, so do you have a phone charger I can use?
Yeah, in my office. I'll get it on the next pause in the video. But, you know, they use these little techniques because the human mind's very good spatially. Like if I told you how to get to River Park, you could picture that pathway, right? You can picture in your mind that pathway. If I told you to remember a string of binary, you're like, after 8 digits, you're like, I have no idea. But if you take those digits and you assign them to spatial, physical environment paths, you can remember them. So a 0 is a left and a 1's a right. Start out at Clinton and Blackstone. 1, go left. You know, 0, go right. Now you're going up towards Freeway 41. 1, now you're going down 41. And so you just remember this pathway, and you just keep remember your turns. 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1. I don't know. That, I guess, takes practice because I still got lost after a couple. I just found myself going around the same block, so to speak. All right, so that's composition. And then we're getting back to the web stuff. And so here's cross-site scripting. And here's our main.go. Right? And we're parsing a file. We're getting our template. So we're getting our templates, and we're executing our template. And we have a struct here that we're passing in as data. Right? So here's the home page data or whatever. And we're passing the title of the home page, and we're passing in the heading of the home page. And then we're passing in some input from like a user form or just, you know, whatever, if we got this from the user. And we're passing that data in. We're executing the template. And here's the template. Right? So we put our title here. We put our heading there. We put the user input right here. And then when we compile this, or whatever, you guys don't need to see me compile it. You've seen that already, right? But when I compile it, I get this. And all of that is right there. So when I run this, Pam, you've been, what do they call it? You've been, well, yeah, what do they call it? Pod? Owned? Owned. What is it?
Whichever you prefer, if you want to put an R or a P at the beginning.
Is it pwned? You've been pwned or something like
Yeah,
that?
that's what they call it on the internet, yeah. pretty sure. I went on there a couple times, you know. No, I'm playing. No, yeah, that's what they say on the internet. Owned, yeah.
You've been owned.
It might have been called that if you got beat.
So nothing got escaped with the text template package, right? When we took our data in, we passed it through, it just came through as text. That's the text template package. Here, same thing. The only difference is instead of text template, we're using HTML template. Right? Before we were using text template. Now we are using HTML template. That's the only difference. The rest of the code is exactly the same. So now when we get that, look at this. It escaped everything. Right? And so those are, what the heck do they call those in web programming? I forget.
Escape sequence.
Yeah, escape sequences, HTML. They have a phrase for them.
Yes.
Escape characters. Escape characters. Escape characters. So now, when I run this page, right, browsers interpret those escape characters. When they read them, they put them back as a symbol, but it's just text, right? They're not actually running it.
Yeah, I think your guest speaker, Daniel,
Did some templating with you guys.
Pretty interesting.
Oh, yeah, he did demonstrate something like that.
Yeah, he's telling us how to secure our websites.
I saw him throwing some script tags in there before I left. I was like, yep, XSS. So, are you going to show us like the preferred way to prevent that now?
Yeah, I use HTML template. And I don't have all the answers. I'm still 9 months new to this language and 2 years new to programming.
Oh, I
So-
thought you were.
Black belt? No, sorry. I'm more like
sure where you're going with the
I'm like
demonstration.
green belt. I'm just showing you. You know, we're gonna build up doing like when we get to here, we're doing sessions, right?
Uh-huh.
And log in and log out.
Right. Okay. Cool.
So the next thing is, you know, we looked at HTML templates and we saw we were using here on main.go, we're using parse files. What's this one do? Here we have multiple files, so that's what this is different about this one. See, we're parsing 2 files. So before we were only parsing 1 file. Now I have two files. I have from temple, from temple, and from temple2 from temple2, right? Template 1, template 2. And so when I parse, because parse files, you know, indicates by its name that I could parse more than one. And if we look at the definition, what are you going to see? You're going to see variadic parameter, right? So it takes unlimited number of strings, file names. And so now we have template parse files. We get our pointer to template execute. OS standard out, page, this data. An anonymous struct literal right there, right? We're passing in just the data right there. So it's no variable name. It's just like, you know, create a type page and give it these values, but we're not assigning it to any variable. Anonymous struct literal. It's anonymous, it's a struct, and it's a literal. It's just a value, right? And just like a literal, like 4, if I'd passed in 4 and it hadn't been assigned to a variable. So anonymous struct literal, and we're executing that. Which template's going to run? What do you think? Just guess. There's, you know, no way you could know, but or is it going to be an error? Just guess. How many people say error? Because I didn't specify. How many people say something else? That's a really good guess, Ruben, because Go really likes you to be exact, right? Like, doesn't tolerate you not being precise, except for in this instance, so you're wrong. But it's a good guess. It's going to execute the first one, and then when I specifically ask for, instead of execute, I say execute template, which one? This one. It'll execute that one, and then when I ask for this one, it'll execute that one, right? So let's just see that. Kerpow, right? It's too much crap up there. There you go. So, you know, you can see the first one is from Temple, right here. You know, we didn't specify one, so just ran the first one. The next one we specified the first one and ran the first one. The next one we specified the second one and ran the second one. The order in which I ran those aren't important. I could have put this code in any order down here. You know. All right. And then we have parse glob. So parse glob is a set of parse files where I got to say, oh, this file and this file and this file, and that could become repetitive quickly. Parse glob just parses an entire directory. So I put all my templates into one directory, and I say go to that directory and anything with the file extension of go.html, and again, that could be any file extension you want, right? I'm going to parse that and put it into my pointer to a template, and then I could execute, and I could execute OS standard out, just straight execute, and it'll give me my first one, or I could specify with execute template, and then you know, I'm passing in different data. Let's see that one. Carpow. All right, so that's the next step. You guys want to code something? So why don't you code parse glob with 2 templates. And I'll put up the code for you to look at. You know, here's a template, and there's parse glob. Okay, I'm passing some data to it.